In this episode of the On That Net Show, we're going to be talking to Stefan Wick about what's been going on inside of the UWP platform. Hi, welcome to another episode of the On That Net Show. My name is Cecil Phillip, and today I have with me Stefan Wick.
Hi, Cecil. Thanks for having me.
So, Stefan, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what exactly it is that you do?
My name is Stefan Wick. I'm a program manager lead on the Windows developer platform. And my team is responsible for the app model in Windows 10.
Gotcha. So that includes UWP and some of these other types of technologies?
Correct, yeah. That spans like Win32 apps, WinForms, WPF, Electron, UWP,
okay.
the whole spectrum of apps on Windows 10.
So any of the desktop-focused applications?
Correct, all the desktop types as well as applications for all our other device types such as Xbox, HoloLens, and
Oh, really? Okay, gotcha. So, as a .NET developer, I've played with Windows Forms before. I've played with, WPF before, but I haven't played with UWP so much. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about, how is that different from some of these other technologies, and what exactly would I build with that?
Yeah, UWP is the native developer platform on Windows 10.
Okay.
With UWP, developers can take advantage of all the device capabilities on their Windows 10 devices, whether it's on PC, HoloLens, Xbox, or any other Windows 10 device. If you have background in .NET, WinForms, WPF, you're actually well set up, to jump on UWP and be productive there right away. And we are continuing to make it easier, to bring your existing skills, your existing code, and your existing applications over to UWP on Windows 10.
Gotcha. So that means that I could take code that I've written in some of these other frameworks and bring them over and have them run just fine inside of UWP?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the Fall Creators Update in 2017, Windows 10 and the Universal Windows Platform now supports .NET Standard 2.0.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
So with that, there is a great degree of compatibility for all your NuGet packages, libraries that you have that are compliant with the .NET Standard 2.0. You can bring them into your UWP application and they will work just fine.
Great. And so is this focused primarily on .NET developers, or could I use other languages to develop UWP?
Yeah, it's a great question. UWP at its core is a language and framework agnostic platform.
Okay.
So we welcome any type of developer. You can build applications in C++ against DirectX. You can build JavaScript applications with HTML. But obviously in the .NET space, with C# or VB, we have a strong basis of developers who build applications for this platform.
Gotcha. So why don't we take a look really quickly and see how we could take advantage of some of those code sharing capabilities?
Yeah. Actually, before we jump into Visual Studio, let me expand on that a little bit. So,
sure.
In addition to kind of the code sharing in terms of sharing NuGet packages or libraries with .NET Standard 2.0, another thing that we've worked on over the last year with the Visual Studio team as well is to bring great support into the platform to move your existing WinForms and WPF applications into the Windows 10 app model.
Okay.
So this is a technology and tooling that we call the Desktop Bridge, which helps existing desktop investments to go to the Windows 10 application model, take advantage of the modern deployment capabilities, and then get access to all the new Windows 10 APIs, such as Windows Hello, Cortana, and so on and so forth. So let me show this in Visual Studio here.
Sure.
Real quick on a simple example. So this is an app, maybe you've seen it before if you've done WPF. It was one of the early samples that we probably shipped about 10 years ago with the original release of WPF. So this is just a very simple game written in WPF. And now I want to use Visual Studio to bring it forward into the Windows 10 app model. And to do this, I add a Windows application packaging project to my solution. let me give this a name. Slide.
So while you're doing that, so Windows application packaging project. So does that mean that I could use this project type to publish to the Windows Store?
Yeah, correct. This is one of the important benefits you get from it.
Yeah.
Just by packaging, you automatically take advantage of the Windows 10 deployment pipeline and packaging format, and you're ready to go to Windows Store. You're also ready to go to Intune or other distribution mechanisms of your choice. So this project doesn't have any code actually. It's just there to kind of wrap your existing application into a new package. So all I need to do is just reference the application that I want to package. I changed the startup project in my solution. And so now I can configure my package a little bit. I don't want to do too much here in the demo. Just one thing so we can easily find our application in the system. I just want to give it an icon.
So tell me a little bit about this screen. So what are you doing right now?
Yeah, so this is the configuration, the app manifest editor in Visual Studio that exists for UWP application. Now I can apply it to my WPF application as well. So I can specify, what is my icon, what does my tile look like, and things like that. I can assign capabilities that are needed to access certain Windows 10 features. I can declare extensions if I want to do background tasks or app services in my application. Those are all basically entry points for new Windows 10 features that are now available in my WPF application. Gotcha. So now if I hit F5, my same application, obviously I haven't changed any code, and hopefully it runs the exact same way still, is here. But now we can see we have our icon here. It shows up automatically in my app list. I can pin it to start. And so now it runs in our modern Windows 10 app model context. The application has an identity. It has access to all the Windows 10 features now. And I can continue to evolve it with WPF code, but at the same time, I can take advantage of all the new UWP features as well. So it's a great way to kind of get the best of both worlds, the kind of more classic desktop Win32 world, as well as the new Windows 10 UWP world, without having to rewrite your code or start from scratch with your project.
So I think that's a great story for our longtime desktop developers. So it doesn't matter if my application is, like you said, Windows Forms that I've written in Visual Basic, a while ago, or whether I'm using WPF, using XAML. Like I could take my application as is. I can add it to this packaging project, and I can make use of things like you said, like Cortana and maybe the location APIs and some of the other things that we have inside of Windows 10.
Those are all great examples. Yeah, Windows Hello and so on and so forth.
Okay, great.
One last thing before we close the demo. Now if I right-click on my project, I actually see here the options to associate with the Windows Store. I can create app packages. So those packages can go to the store, but also I can choose to just create the packages for my own purposes. For example, I want to distribute them in my enterprise via web share, or I want to use them in Intune and not through the Microsoft Store. So those are all options that are available. So now my package is complete. And having a package also means you don't need an installer anymore, because the package on Windows 10 is your installer. So let me show you this. Here's our package that Visual Studio has created for my WPF application. I can double click on it, and now this provides me with the installer UX that comes natively with the Windows 10 OS. In this case, it detects the app is already installed because I have deployed it from Visual Studio. But if it weren't installed, the user could now hit the install button and install it from here.
And before you click that button, I just want to highlight this at the bottom. It says a newer version was detected. So if you need to push updates or anything like that, like the installer itself is intelligent enough it's going to go check the file share or the Windows Store or wherever?
Yeah, that's a
I don't know,
that's a great point. Yeah, our update mechanism is actually fairly elaborate. We are able to provide you with differential updates. So consider you have a game that is 10 gigabytes and you change just one level there with a couple of kilobytes and you want to push that update. You don't want to push a 5 gigabyte update to all your customers. You only want to send those few kilobytes that are actually changed. And our pipeline is able to actually detect all the deltas and then only send down the deltas.
That's really good.
And yeah, those updates can come from the store. They can also come from your website if you want to host the installer on your website.
So that's probably really good for enterprises, because that means that they could control when the updates happen, what actually goes in the updates. And like I'm guessing they can control what devices they go on using things like Active Directory and Intune and things of that nature.
Exactly. And they can save a lot of network bandwidth through the differential updates.
Gotcha.
The other benefit also is disk space saving on the machine, because in our packages, when you package, for example, the Telerik control suite or some other common framework, you might have 100 apps on your system that all package the same,
using the same tool
framework. Our pipeline on the system is smart enough to detect those duplicates and only store one copy of it on the system, and then use hard links from the others. So that you can get some substantial storage savings on your system.
So that means that there's some common storage area, right? That all of the applications that are packaged like this are going to look for to see.
Any common files or frameworks can be shared in this way.
Cool.
And this comes for free, so the developer does not need to do extra work for that.
Anything extra? Okay, that sounds pretty good. So we saw how we could take our existing apps and kind of move them over into this new model. So what about all the stuff that's been happening in that UWP space? Like what are some of the new features that are coming up, and what are some of the things that we can look forward to going forward? Yeah,
I think if you look at the year 2017, we've had some dramatic improvements in UWP. The platform first was released in 2015 with the first release of Windows 10, and since then, year after year, we've had dramatic improvements in the platform. In 2017, one of the big things that we've shipped was the Fluent Design System. That you are starting to see now more and more apps picking up in the Windows ecosystem, both in our first-party apps as well as in third-party apps. You'll see some of the new UI paradigms. So this is a big thing to look for, where we'll also continue to improve this design language in this release and the next one.
So before you continue, so one of the things that for me as a developer, not a designer, that always trips me up is when people say design language. So when we talk about design language, we're really talking about patterns, practices, some constraints around how to build the user experience and the UI of the application.
Yeah, that's correct. There is that, and a lot of this is baked into the native controls with UWP. So as a regular developer, you get a lot of these for free, without actually being a designer or knowing about all those patterns. Just by using like standard controls like the navigation view, all of this comes built in. But then if you are actually a designer or a very UI savvy developer, you have all the knobs to fine-tune this and customize this to the exact design that you want to accomplish.
Gotcha, great.
So this is a big one. The other big one that is coming up is continuing this path that I've touched on here with combining your WinForms, WPF, and Win32 applications with modern concepts. So really sharing UI between those both worlds is a big focus for new feature development for us. So one thing that is in the current release, in the 1803 release that's hitting RTM any day now, is the ability to host the modern web view control in your WPF or WinForms application. So this way you get kind of the more advanced and more secure edge-based HTML engine in your WinForms or Win32 application. And along those lines, we are continuing to support more and more of these modern UI concepts also in your existing classic Windows applications.
So I've used the web browser control in Windows Forms applications, right? And I think it was some version of I think you can specify the version of the browser that you use. So it's something similar. Are you using like the actual core browser, or are you using like certain components of it?
Well, it is based on the Edge HTML engine. So you use the same components as Edge and have the same more advanced support that Edge provides.
Gotcha. All right, so why don't we talk a little bit about how can I actually get started with UWP? Like, what are some of the things I need to know about, what do I need to have installed on my machine or in Visual Studio?
Yeah, that's a great question. With Visual Studio 2017, you have everything basically there. It comes with the latest Windows SDK and all the bits and pieces that you need to get started and get going. If you start that way, what you see typically is, we have a blank project that basically gives you the hello world UWP, which is great for people who like to do that and start, with a completely empty and clean kind of slate.
Yeah.
However, we've also received a lot of feedback from our developers that they want a richer experience to get their project started and get a lot of the kind of boilerplate code out of the way and start, with their functionality coding right away. So to kind of satisfy that need, the Windows team has delivered a tool that's called Windows Template Studio.
Okay.
It's available in the Visual Studio Gallery as a free download. And so I've already installed it here. And so let me show you how this looks like and how this helps you get started with UWP. So I'll start a new project and I use the Windows Template Studio here.
So you have a template for Template Studio.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And so now this gives you kind of an a la carte model to kind of put together your starting point for an application.
Gotcha.
So I want to start, I want an application that uses a navigation pane. It's kind of a common pattern these days. And I can pick between different frameworks here. I just want to do old school code behind. That's kind of how I work best. And now I can add some content pages to my application, because most applications will need a settings page. So I also want a web view here.
Okay.
So let me just add a few of these to kind of show how these look.
So what you're adding now, are these pages? Are these controls? Are these like, what
these are pages within the navigation view.
Okay.
Where basically the user can switch between the different types of content. Right?
Gotcha. Okay.
I also can select a couple of app model features that I want to add to my application, so I don't need to go to MSDN and look up, hey, how do I add a URI scheme?
Sure.
Or things like that. I can do this here with just a couple of clicks. So let me see. Let me just add a live tile here, so that's a popular feature. And now I'm going to create my project. So this will take a couple of seconds. What's happening here is now the code gets generated for my project. So we're not just giving you libraries for these features. We're actually making this your code, so you can then go into it and
you can edit it and you can customize
add things, customize it.
Gotcha.
And so this all becomes your code. The Windows Template Studio itself also is open source, so you'll find it on GitHub. You can look at all the things we're doing there, and also
and you can contribute.
Yeah.
So I think that was an interesting point you brought up, because when you brought it up, and there was a section at the bottom that said frameworks, and I saw there was Prism, there was NVM Lite, And so those are some really popular community-driven frameworks, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm guessing if I decide to create my own MVVM framework or something like that, I could go onto the GitHub repo, I could clone a repo, I can make a contribution, and then anybody that installs the template studio would just see my
absolutely.
my
So
contribution?
that's a possibility. So we have a couple of different contributors in the template studio today. We have the Telerik control suite, for example, as part of it, and some of the popular MVVM frameworks as well.
Gotcha.
So the generation is done. So we see here in the Solution Explorer, here's all our code, the markup and the code behind. So let me launch this real quick so you get an idea of what you get. So this could be your first UWP app, and right out of the gate, I think you already have a pretty good starting point here with a bunch of the boilerplate code out of the way.
Yeah.
So here are the different pages that we've added. So here's my web view, for example. Here's a media player, some video from Build, I guess, last year.
Right.
Master details, so all this is kind of hooked up already.
Nice.
So you can replace the sample content with your own easily. We have chart controls here, so this is a contribution from Telerik, for example, so the Telerik chart controls.
Okay.
This is the settings page. Most apps need this here. For example, you can switch to the dark theme for your application. You get all that for free. So this gives you a really solid starting point, and you can have fun coding right away. You don't need to study like hours and hours to figure out how do I, change the theme of my app or things like that.
Gotcha. Could we take a look at one of the XAML files really quickly?
Yeah, sure. For example, the web view page, that should be pretty easy. So yeah, bunch of styles here, probably not too interesting, and the actual XAML down here.
So what I wanted to ask was, so if I've built a Xamarin Forms app before, if I've built a WPF app before, like I'm using XAML. Right? Is this the same XAML? Is that similar? Or
it's very similar. It is not the same XAML though.
So like a different version or different
flavor? You will
flavor?
have to learn the UWP dialect.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, WPF, UWP, and Xamarin each have their own dialect.
Their own version.
The learning curve is pretty easy there.
Right, but pretty much like you selected a couple options, and now we have a lot of code that we could look at, we can expect, we can customize if we wanted to build our own UWP application.
Yeah, another great thing about the Template Studio also is that you can at any point in time you can go back to it and actually add to it. If later you discover, I actually forgot to add my my data grid, so now you can add it here, and so it now shows you, hey, this is the code I will be adding to your solution.
This is like a diff on the
this is kind of a diff
right side there.
For all the different files that are changed.
Got it.
You can review that and accept it, and so now it's added to your project. And if I run it again, I have one additional page in my project with the Telerik data grid control.
Cool, that's awesome.
So let's take a look real quick.
So while it's loading up, why don't we talk a little bit about
here it is.
How do we, why don't we talk a little bit about the getting started experience in terms of like where can I get documentation? Where do I go to actually see like the tools that I need to get started with?
Yeah, so the main entry point is dev.windows.com. If you go there, from there you'll pretty much find everything. Link to Template Studio, link to the documentation. We have a ton of samples out there on GitHub that are linked from there. Lots of more detailed kind of scenarios and case study documents and things like that.
Great. Well, I feel like there's so much more that we could talk about, but how about we have you come back on another time and then we can dig into some more of the details.
Yeah, we should do this again. Yeah, sounds great.
Great. Well, again, this is another episode of the On.NET Show, and we just learned all of the good stuff about the UWP platform.